Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. After discovering their child's sensitivity to synthetic dyes, Brandon and Whitney Cawood, parents-turned-filmmakers, embarked on a journey to uncover the hidden impacts of these additives. Their documentary combines scientific insights and personal stories from affected families, revealing the unseen dangers of synthetic dyes. Through expert interviews and heartfelt narratives, the Cawoods aim to raise awareness of the profound effects these chemicals can have on individuals and families alike. I'm really excited that they're both on the show today. I think the first time that I've had two guests with me at the same time, and we're going to be uncovering the hidden dangers of synthetic dyes with Brandon and Whitney. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yay. So you all have the new documentary To Die For. I watched it. It is incredible. We'll dive into all of it. But first, can you share the moment when you first discovered your child's sensitivity to synthetic dyes and how that really changed your approach to health and wellness?
Yeah. So really, his reaction to synthetic dyes kind of came out of nowhere. The fact that he was reacting to a chemical, because most of what we ate on a day-to-day basis was like organic or clean, or what I consider clean, but most of the foods that he consumed didn't have synthetic dyes. So we really weren't expecting a chemical like synthetic dyes to have such a dramatic effect. But between the ages of 1 and 3, his behavior was really up and down and kind of erratic. We had a lot of hitting and biting and all the things, which can be normal for a child between the ages of 1 and 3, but it was happening all the time and constantly. And he was in a mother's morning out, which is just like 2 hours, just a couple of days a week. And we were having multiple write-ups. They at one point had a teacher assigned to him to make sure he wasn't hurting other children. And so it was really impacting our life and was really impacting him. And of course, at home, he was having like these fits and signs of aggression daily. And so most days were like that. But then occasionally we would have these days that we were like, whoa, like who is this kid? This very easygoing, very easy to reason with child. And so when we were consulting doctors, we really a diagnosis didn't necessarily fit because it was so inconsistent, and he was so young to kind of pursue a diagnosis. So we held back, and we were doing therapy and consulting doctors, of course, and I decided to look into diet. And so I found an article that suggested eliminating wheat, dairy, and synthetic dyes. And we were actually on vacation, and we just went all in, eliminating those 3 things. And within 48 hours, that child that we saw on those easy days, we had that child for 30 days straight. I like to say it eliminated like 98% of our issues. And the other 2%, it was like he could slow down enough for us to work through it and reason with him. And then after the 30 days, we reintroduced wheat, and we saw no effect. And then a couple weeks later, or a week later, we reintroduced dairy, and we saw no effect. And then when we reintroduced synthetic dyes, within 15 minutes, all those behaviors we were seeing before came flooding back. The hitting and the biting and the aggression and the hyperactivity, it all kind of just came flooding back. And then we've had several instances where we've had foods or come in contact with dyes and we weren't expecting it, and the same thing happens. Like he had one mini marshmallow at one time, and we have 48 hours of the same behavior. And so it's kind of been surprising the places that you find synthetic dyes. And we were really shocked because, like I said, he really wasn't consuming that many dyes. It was really just daily, in his daily allergy medicine. He had chronic ear infections that year, so he was kind of on a Rev 40 loop with amoxicillin. And so all of those combined together really made it to where he was kind of on a Rev 40 loop. And so I got really interested in the science. And so I started researching, if there was any evidence that this could cause like neurobehavioral effects in children. And I was shocked that there was a lot of research on it. But the abstract was confusing to me. I'm college educated, but I mean, I have a teaching degree, so I was not prepared for that. And I had a lot of questions. So I decided to ask Brandon if he wanted to document our journey as I asked all the questions that I wanted to have answered with these researchers and impacted families, and he agreed.
That's so cool. Well, don't worry. Abstracts are still over my head too, and I have a doctorate. So I swear it takes like a different brain to try and understand those. So, wow, that's incredible. So is the amoxicillin that he was being exposed to the most?
Well, probably
I would say the daily allergy medicine.
Yeah, it was like the
allergy medicine.
Yeah, it was like a little purple.
It's so
and
crazy.
the reason why they wanted, because he was having such issues with, I would say, well, whenever he was 1, it was mainly like Tylenol, because the doctor said the aggression's probably coming from teething. And but then I went back and I was like, it's worse after I give him the medicine, and I was like, it doesn't seem like it's helping. It actually seems like it's worse. But I still, at that point, medicine wasn't really something we looked at. We're much more holistic now. But it was really, whenever he was having the chronic ear infections between 2 and 3, the doctor suggested giving him a daily allergy medicine so that it would help with his allergies, and then Benadryl at night anytime he had a runny nose. And so he was constantly having a runny nose, because children always have runny noses. So it was a combination of really more of the medicine. And then, of course, when we went to birthday parties, he would have the occasional treat. But when we went through our pantry and our refrigerator and all the things at home, really, other than like marshmallows and hand soaps, we really didn't find it in our food. So
he had like some candy and stuff, but he wasn't eating that on a regular basis.
Yeah, nothing
once
regular.
in a while stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. What is dye doing in a marshmallow, anyways?
I know.
Yeah.
And a
That's
hand
shocking.
Toothpaste. So what are some of the, we'll just touch on that question right now. Like, where are synthetic dyes hidden that we might not be expected to see them?
Yeah.
More so what we just mentioned.
Yeah. Fortune cookies was a shocking one to
cookies.
me. Yeah. Most fortune cookies, there is a brand that I found at Kroger. I can't remember the name, but it's dye-free. That's the only brand that I've ever come across that's dye-free. Chips, vanilla and chocolate icing was really shocking to me, because you would assume that the brown would be from the cocoa, and not a dye. But oftentimes, really, when we started this journey, most icings, chocolate and vanilla, had dyes, and it was very difficult. We had to master the art of buttercream icing, because we couldn't find like just like tub icing that was dye free.
Yeah.
Pickles and pickled items, cake mixes, puddings, ice cream, sauces, cinnamon rolls, yogurt, baked goods, packaged fruit snacks like little gummies, berry products like even muffins, muffin mixes. Oftentimes, instead of using real blueberries, I'm not sure what they use, but they use something with a dye in it. Movie popcorn, that was a hard one for us. Cosmetics, mouthwash, toothpaste, like you said. So they're really in some kind of less conspicuous places.
There's a bag. I just saw a guy the other day who was showing a bag of, it's like yellow rice. They use a lot in like Mexican food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it had red 3 and yellow, one of the yellows in it, like, which is crazy. Like, you could just use a turmeric in it. Yeah, it turns it yellow. You don't need all that crazy dye in it. So
yeah,
it's lots of weird places like that.
It is. Yeah, it's very weird, especially when you start looking at it. And awareness is key, right? So now that people are aware, and even, through your documentary, it's like, oh, cat. I mean, I've seen it in toothpaste.
Yeah. Well, one of the shocking things is when you see it in like with marshmallows, you're mainly seeing them in like the name brand, like the Jet Puff marshmallows have blue one in them. But most of your generic marshmallows, like your store brand, don't have the blue one in them. And so when you look at those two things side by side, they look identical. So it's almost like, why is it even there? Or like Doritos, Aldi has a version of Doritos that they sell, and they use natural dyes. But you look at those two chips side by side, they look identical. So it's like places where they're not really necessary. That's where it's the most shocking to me, is like it doesn't even need to be in there. Why is it in there? So
Exactly. So can you explain a little bit, like kind of the science about how or why the synthetic dyes contribute to behavior changes like hyperactivity and aggression?
Well, most of the studies have focused on like, do dyes cause hyperactivity? Or, like most in the 27 clinical trials, those are all basically studies around children and determining whether or not they have hyperactivity. There has been some studies that I think some like test tube studies and things like that have looked at that dyes could potentially be causing microscopic changes to the brain, and that it is actually affecting like the neurotransmitters. And so that's another, and that kind of is a good argument towards dyes not being, they're not an allergy, because allergies don't don't make microscopic changes to the brain. They're not affecting the
Yeah.
neurotransmitter. So a lot of times people are confused. Well, if it's just an allergy, why would you like be trying to get why would you not just like put allergy warnings? But it's completely different than allergy. But, and then also in Europe, in the European Union, Dr. Stevenson, who did the study, the Southampton study, which is the study that is the reason why like the European Union requires a warning label on food. He's also a geneticist and really into genetics. So he did do a cheek swab on the kids as he was doing the study. And they did find that several of the kids who had like strong reactions to dyes had like a variant of like a histamine gene. So a lot of times when you think of histamine, you do think of allergies, but histamine is actually, it's a neurotransmitter. So,
which makes sense when the symptoms are hyperactivity, inattentiveness, sleeplessness, irritability, restlessness, and aggression. And so that's what those 27 clinical trials that we're referring to, that's coming out of the California Office of Environmental Health Hazards Assessment, conducted the most thorough study on dyes in the world. And so it's a meta-analysis. So it's very, very strong, looking at 27 clinical trials, mechanistic evidence, in vitro evidence, animal evidence. And so those show that they cause hyperactivity in some children. Of course, not all children react to dyes, but the how and what's happening in the brain is not 100% conclusive, but the consensus is it's affecting the neurotransmitters.
Yeah, and all the researchers and scientists that we spoke to, obviously they would love to get to the bottom of it. They would love to get to the bottom of like what's actually happening. But those studies cost money and they have to be funded. And the bottom line is like there's enough evidence in the science that shows that they're really not safe for children or anybody really to be consuming. So like, could we do more research to find out the mechanism of what's actually happening? Absolutely. But do we need to keep advocating to remove it from the food system? I don't think so. I think we got plenty of evidence for that.
Hey, they're slowly coming out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you update for people that don't know? I'm sure it's fresh on yours. Like what's been happening as far as the dyes here in the U.S.?
So the day after our film came out January 14th. And so we're not giving credit to our film. Like it didn't just happen.
Give credit to your film. Do it.
Next day. Now we have been in this mix for 3 years at this point. We have a Facebook group that we started around the same time as the film that has 800 and almost 850,000 people in it. And then
I think it is today. I think it hit 850.
And
cool.
It's growing by thousands. We get a couple thousand people joining that group a day. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
And it's not necessarily related to the film. It's just like a dye-free group for parents and families, like to connect with other families and talk about swaps and alternatives and stuff like that. So that group has been really big. So and then we've helped with petitions and sending and getting the word out, and also our film page, our film social media on Instagram and Facebook. We have over 100,000 people there. So we've been in the mix for a while, but it was just kind of coincidental that the day after our film came out that the FDA actually banned Red 3. And the crazy thing about Red 3 is Red 3 has been banned in cosmetics and externally applied drugs since 1990. And we've known that it caused cancer since the 80s. And so what had happened?
Cancer in animal studies.
Yeah, cancer in animal studies. So what happened was before those studies came out, it had already been permanently approved for food and ingested drugs. Whenever the externally applied drugs and cosmetics industry applied for the petition to get it permanently approved, for whatever reason, the FDA required them to do some more research. And then those studies came out. And so the studies found that when they fed mice to rats, that the male rats
when they fed Red 3 to mice,
that the rats got tumors. And this is something that's been talked about a lot. So like what you're hearing a lot of people saying that the only reason that the FDA banned Red 3 now is because of the Delaney Clause, which states that any substance that's known to cause cancer in animals or humans is not supposed to be approved for use in food or drugs. But the Delaney Clause has been around since like the 50s. So they knew about the Delaney Clause. They said they were going to take steps from 1990 to ban it in food and drinks, but they never did. And then, of course, I mean, most people have seen what's going on with MAHA and with RFK. And so like some awareness has come up around synthetic dyes over the past year, and it put some pressure. And so the FDA did on January 15th, the day after our film came out, they went ahead and banned synthetic dye or Red 3 nationwide. It doesn't go in effect until 2027, but but they have done that. And so,
and then also California was the first state to act, and they banned Red 3 first, and then they banned synthetic dyes in California public schools, which was an amazing move. And then now it's session season. And so we have a lot of states that have, I think we have 17 states that we know of now that have dye like centered regular or bills on the table. And so West Virginia is officially the first state to have banned it in the
statewide.
Little West Virginia. I know. And that was honestly, that's incredible because the amount of industry threats and pushback like has been immense, and it's been wild. And so there are most of the regulation that's happening right now, or the bills on the table, it's banning dyes in public schools, which I think is incredible and like a very, very needed, obvious like first step in protecting children. But there are several states now that have bills on the table to ban it like statewide, which could have repercussions for the rest of us in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, just today. So like it had passed the House and the Senate last week in West Virginia, but they made an amendment. So it had to go back to the House, and then they had to make another amendment. So it had to go back to the Senate. But now it's finally made it through. The governor's already said he's going to sign it. So they will be the first state to pass it, which is really cool. But this whole past week, while it was still waiting on it to go back to the Senate and back to the House and the governor to sign it, industry, like especially like the Beverage Association, they were putting out radio ads and all kinds of stuff saying
making
that
threats.
West Virginia is going to have 60% of their products off the shelves if this goes through. So it's
saying they're going to pull out their factories from the state. It's wild.
Yeah, it's just been it's been crazy. Like we heard about this the whole time making the film. Like there's so much industry pressure, and we didn't expect to get involved in the mix of the politics and of like the and doing like, you know, bills and stuff like that. We didn't know that would happen so quick to our film coming out, but for whatever reason, some of these legislators have seen the film and reached out to us and asked us to help. And so we've kind of got a front row seat as well as like a crash course in civics. And every single state does things different. It's been wild, but it's been really cool to see that there actually are states who like, and West Virginia is not alone. So West Virginia is statewide. Oklahoma right now is working on a statewide. We talked to a representative from North Carolina last week, and they're working on a statewide ban. And then there's also Florida has one that's a warning label, so it would be a warning label statewide. So I think Texas, theirs has something to do with a warning label. Arizona. So there's all kinds of movement, which is really cool to see.
No, it's really cool, and it's not just the one dye; it's all of them. How many are there?
There are 9 dyes that are approved for use in food in the United States. There are more that are approved for use in like cosmetics and drugs, but the ones that are in food are kind of the main ones that we're focused on right now. And 2 of those are not really used anymore. So Orange B and Citrus Red 2. Orange B, I think they used for like sausage casings. That was kind of the only use for it. And it's just has kind of faded away. Nobody is really using it anymore. It's still approved, but nobody's using it. And you can verify that because you can, with dyes, every single batch of synthetic dye that gets produced has to be batch certified by the FDA. So to send a sample in, get it tested to make sure it doesn't have more than like the allowable limits of like heavy metals and things like that.
Yeah.
And so Orange B and Citrus Red 2 have not been batch certified in a long time. Citrus Red 2 was just a dye that was used to put on the skin of Florida oranges. So it was like it became very controversial, and I think they stopped using it. So it's still approved, but it's not used. So the main ones
we don't need dye on our oranges.
Yeah, we don't need dye in anything.
Exactly. The main ones that people are focused on now, and the ones that are being addressed in these bills, are of course Red 40, which is the most prevalent dye in our food, and then Yellow 5, Yellow 6. Those are the next 2, and then Blue 1, Blue 2, Green 3, and Red 3. And of course, Red 3 has now been banned statewide, but nationwide, but still states are still putting it in their bills just to go ahead and have it. And some of these bills are going into effect before the nationwide ban. So it's in there, but those are those 6 ones that are, or 6 or 7 that are being banned. Now, Tennessee is only banning, their bill that they're working on is just banning Red 40, but better than
nothing. There is some big beef around. People are happy about Red 3, but they're like, why wasn't red 40? And red 40 is like everywhere. And actually, I believe has a little bit more research to be worse than red 3. So can you speak your opinion a little bit on that?
There was just a lot of evidence that it caused cancer in animals. And so the Delaney clause, it which is crazy because the FDA, they're not allowed to have chemicals or food additives that they know cause cancer in animals. They're legally not allowed to do that. And they did that for 35 years, 1990, which is the year before I was born, to put it into context, for a very long time. And so like, that's why whenever CSPI and other organizations petitioned them to address red 3 and to take it off the market, they really couldn't say no, which actually, I mean, they have been for years and years and years because they've been petitioning them for a long time, but there's no case because it's not lawful for it to be in our food. And so it's kind of been kind of a cop out. They have been saying, oh, we just did it not because it's safe, but because of the Delaney clause. But like, that's the reason why we have the Delaney clause. It's kind of common sense if we know it causes cancer in animals that we shouldn't be consuming it because, and the argument is that you can avoid it if you want to avoid it, but it's in a lot of medications. And there are a lot of children that take medications daily. Like if you have a child that's epileptic, you have to take that medication daily but it's wild. So I think that's why it's addressed. Red 3 has been addressed before any of the others. And there's a lot of, and we saw this when we were testifying, there's a lot of people who still don't believe that something we eat can affect a child's like hyperactivity or aggression or can create like suicidal ideation in children. And there's a lot of people who just kind of think it's pseudoscience when it's actually like science. And so I think that is probably the reason why we haven't seen like the other dyes addressed is because like there's this big gap between like there's research that's done and researchers publish their work and then they move on to other research. And there's no one like getting it to like GMA so that everybody knows there's this new study, like, so there are just these studies that are just kind of out there, they're there, but like people just don't know about it. And so,
well, there's that. And then there's also the fact that the companies who are making the most money from using synthetic dyes are some of the most powerful like industries in the world. You got big food, you have big pharma, and we've seen it firsthand. They have lobbyists. We had, like I said, Tennessee is literally like only banning red 40 in public school. That's what their bill is. Nothing crazy. I mean, it's common sense legislation. If red 40 is known to cause hyperactivity and all these things in children, a school probably should not be providing it to them. Especially if they're going to discipline them for behavior. So it's kind of no nonsense legislation, but they had a lobbyist come out and speak at a committee hearing. And it's a lot of times it's been, the rhetoric has been, the FDA says they're safe. The other countries like food systems.
That's probably the biggest factor. The FDA on their website says that it's safe.
And
whereas also on their website for years and years and years, you could find the studies, and you can probably still find it. I haven't looked in about a year, but you could find the study where they concluded themselves that red 3 causes cancer in animals. And then you go to another page and where it says, oh, well, we don't allow foods or additives in our food system that we know cause cancer in animals. It's like, it's so contradictory, but like on their website, it literally says that dyes are safe for use. And so that's the rhetoric that everybody is using.
And these companies have, they have money to send out lobbyists. They have money to pay for radio ads. They have money to send people to talk to legislators' offices. And, there's, of course, there could be money being given out, for certain things. So like, it's a hard battle to fight. And especially when you think of how bills are passed, like a lot of these things that we've gone to, we've been either like personal experience testimonies. We're not even truly experts. We're experts by like, I don't know what I've been saying, like
proxy.
Yeah. We're just like, we've been around it so much that we have a good grasp on it, but you literally have some of these places, you have 1 minute to testify. And then, so you get up there, then you have this industry expert who is very kind. They pay attention.
They have the relationships.
They speak back to all the legislators, representative, whatever, senator, whatever. They're very, and then they basically present this stuff as like, all these organizations say that this stuff is safe. So for a long time, it's been hard to make any progress. But what's happened is there's enough awareness now, and there's a lot of people working on this. So like, even just in our little circle, we have a group of, 10 people that we're able to talk to a senator, talk to a representative, and be like, you need an expert at your testimony. You need this person. You need to make sure that your sponsor is up to date on like making sure. So like, we're finally figuring out ways to combat that. And so it's been really cool to see. And I think that's probably when we're going up against an industry that does not want to have to reformulate. It's not that I don't think it'll cost them that much more money in the long run, like to actually change to more natural color additives, but it's the inconvenience of it. It's the inconvenience of what's happening. And what they're really getting frustrated with now is because it hasn't been addressed on a national level, on a federal level, you're seeing states finally say enough is enough. And like, it's driving them crazy that this state is saying they're going to do this and this state's saying they're going to do this. It's going to make, if they want to keep dyes in their products and all these bills pass, it's going to make it very complicated for their companies to keep it and sell it in these other places. Little states like West Virginia, they can make a threat and be like, you have 1.8 million people. We're just not going to sell products to you guys. But the more states that come out and do this, the more states that pass these bills, they can't keep saying that. So
yeah,
the writing is on the wall, and what they're going to eventually have to do is they just have to reformulate, because I think they see it coming. I think they're trying to push it back.
That's what they're doing for our counterparts in Europe and some products in Australia and Canada. They have, and that when we started this process, I thought that was, honestly, I was like, oh, that sounds so untrue. It sounds like fear mongering. No, we went to Europe. We saw the dye-free Fruit Loops. We saw the dye-free Doritos. We saw the dye-free Fantas. Like, they literally have other products that they're serving to other countries, but they're putting up such a fight here in the US because the reality is it's going to cost them a little bit of inconvenience. It's probably not even going to cost them that much money, because if you look at like Dunkin' Donuts made the move to all their donuts except like their holiday donuts are dye-free. Baskin Robbins, their colorful ice creams are dye-free. Like all their ice cream line is dye-free. Panera Bread cookies, Starbucks, Burger King, there's all these big companies and big restaurants that have done it, and they don't look like they're hurting. Like, they're not going under. Yeah. And so they can do it. And then even if you compare like Fruit Loops brand, like Fruit Loops at a grocery
Walmart
store or at Walmart, compare that price to an Aldi Fruit Loop counterpart that is dye-free, it's like $1.50 cheaper.
It's double the price. So the Aldi box is 12.2 ounces. It's $1.68. The Fruit Loop is 8.9 ounces, and it's $3.98. So
yeah.
So the rhetoric is just, it's not true.
Well, the thing is, we are potentially taking away one of their most valuable marketing tools, and especially when we're talking about marketing to kids, and it's the bright colors, and maybe not even just to kids, but Americans as a whole have grown to expect their food to be brightly colored, especially their junk food and their cereal and things like that. They expect it. And so like, it is a valuable marketing tool. It's what sells a lot of the food. And they know there's just going to be a big shift in education and like, why are the dyes out? Why have we been putting these dyes in your food for so long? They're trying to push that back as long as they can. So,
and guess what? Why are people getting healthier? They don't want us to be healthy either.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's another big part of it too. It's like, well, we can keep all these things that are going to keep us sick. There's more money in the long run for them and big farm and all of that. So,
the pharmaceutical industry, that's a whole new, that's a whole new like ball game. And a lot of states are actually really, I think there's only one state that's addressing pharmaceuticals because they know like, that's going to be a very difficult battle to fight.
Well, that's what I deal with in my industry, in the naturopathic industry. I mean, they're taking stuff left and right from us because guess what? It works. Yeah. And it's getting people healthy. And that's why we get such big kickback from insurance. It's like they don't want to recognize what we do because we actually help people, change their lives and become healthier. What a concept, right?
Get to the root cause.
You mean you don't have to give them something forever to make them better?
No, you can heal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think my personal journey with changing my life and my food and limiting like the amount of toxins like has completely transformed my life personally. Like I have several food allergies, a lot of autoimmune issues, Raynaud syndrome, POTS, like all the things. I was tachycardic. My resting heart rate was 120 to 160 at like 15. And then now I'm 34 and I've never been healthier because in part to like changing my diet. And I'm definitely not perfect. I'm just eating real foods. Whereas before I was just eating junk.
Yep. Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's a lot of, I mean, we weren't taught anything about education in school. Even medical doctors, they have maybe 5 hours of nutrition in their education. So yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And we see billboards and the gimmicks and, you know, we're used to it. We're used to having, like you just said, the colorful foods and it tastes good. It's like, well, it's all crap. It doesn't need to be in there. It could still taste good and not have all that crap.
Right.
It actually tastes better,
Yeah,
I think,
True.
if you compare it. Yeah.
And our kids say the same thing. It's funny because like we make like homemade like treats, like little homemade candies. And they're like, that is so much better.
Yeah.
Like our little date Reese's are better than regular Reese's.
Right?
Brandon would say no, but our kids love it.
They're good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, your documentary is called To Die For, To Die, DYE for. It's streaming on all platforms, right? Prime, Apple TV, Google Play, Fandango, at home, Vimeo, on demand. Is it anywhere else since you signed?
No, that's everywhere. That's everywhere it is right now. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So Prime Video, all of them. So yeah, make sure that you watch this documentary. We're also going to put your links to your Facebook group for just about dyes and then even the documentary that you were just mentioning. So that will be in the show notes. But we probably could talk about dyes for another several hours and food in general. But I'll wrap it up with one question I ask all my guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you could share with the audience?
Ooh.
I'll let you take this one.
I would say, well, health tip. Can it be kind of spiritual?
Absolutely.
I would say I mean, I guess each person is different, but in my life, aside from eating like whole foods, has been completely transformative. But like, I love waking up early in the morning and like digging into the word. I'm a Christian. And so I spend that time just between me and God, and I go through the Bible, like kind of slowly, one book at a time, and spend like a whole week in a chapter. And that has been so healing for my soul. And when I don't do that, I just feel very not myself, or actually, I guess more myself than I should. So that would be my tip.
Well, and then how, tell me the question again. How is it?
What is your best or favorite health tip that you could share with the audience?
Aside from like our faith and things like that, I think that a healthy family life balance is extremely important. Like our favorite thing to do is to hang out with our kids, and like if we could, we would not work and we would just travel in our camper all the time. That's what we would do. So I don't know. I feel like if you gotta have balance, and the way I look at the world is like I'm working to be able to do the things for the freedom to be able to do things with my family. I'm not chasing a amount of money to make. I make what I make, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's less, and sometimes it's more. But I mainly do that, and I mainly work for myself, and have chosen to be my own boss so that I can spend time with my family and have that freedom. And so I feel like work-life balance is
and grounding.
important.
Grounding's very healing.
Yeah, we've just got into grounding. We have a grounding sheet, and that thing is awesome.
I love it. I love it. Well, you two are doing amazing things for the children, for our country. I really appreciate it. And I just want to thank you for your time being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Of course. And we look forward to seeing everyone again next week. Take care. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if you haven't done so, please be sure to give us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Join us weekly as we inspire you to be your best version. For more, follow me on Instagram at dr.erinellis. Until next week, you got this.